Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beard Blather 211, the Three-Ring Circus. This is Saul Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, right now transmitting from Liguria in Italy. This is where I was just a little while ago. It's Portofino. Well, I'll drop a word or two about it later. And so you see, I'm beyond rich. You cannot insult me tonight. I'm in freaking heaven. Now, right next to me, this guy over there is Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War One flamethrowers from the opposite end of the spectrum. You see, I'm in heaven, he's in fucking hell, in Californication, which I understand has done nothing to improve its luck this week. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Saul. How are you?
And by the way, if I feel weird, it's because I don't even know what time it is over here. I'm kind of like 9 hours ahead of you or whatever the crap, and it's kind of funny. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. By next week, I shall be back in Florida in a normal time frame, and what's it what we can do? All good things must come to an end, and my carousing through Italy is coming to an end this week. I don't like this. I, you know what I love about this country?
What's that?
A good bottle of Chianti. You can buy at a supermarket for $2.50. It's cheaper than Coca-Cola, man. Now,
I
this
mean, yeah. I mean,
this thing is more expensive than a 750 milliliters, milliliters, yeah, cc's of a good wine. How is that even possible?
well, we have lots of good wine here that you could buy in the supermarket. It's like um,
Yeah, for $2.
yeah, by box. Chef kiss. It's a magnificent wine. Um, no, my father went through a wine period in his later years, and this is a guy who subsisted on 1 to 2 bottles of scotch per day. So he was like downing. He finally just started getting the gallon boxes, and then he went back to the hard stuff because I think the last time I really drank wine was in Japan in the
Mm,
late 1980s, and I was just like, when does this stuff kick in? And
Never,
yeah, no, it's
never. I,
I
I was telling somebody to get drunk on wine, you have to make an effort.
oh yeah, no, I would pound down 2 or 3 bottles, and then it would be like, okay, but it's like my bladder is this big now, but
Yeah,
no, but here in California, I don't know, I'm waiting. Here's what I'm waiting for. Um, I don't remember which city it is in Canada. It's a big city. The police just told the general public to leave their keys on the front porch, so the
yes.
robbers can just get in, and that way they can avoid conflict with robbers.
Right, because robbers, these nasty people, were going into houses to steal the keys, and this way you avoid a confrontation.
I
Oh,
mean,
great!
this is.
Should I just bend over and put my ass out the window so they can fuck me easy?
I mean, this is so beyond parody at this point, and this is why we call today's show the Three Ring Circus, because you look around you and it's a genuine three-ring circus that the leftists are grimly and I forgot her name already. Nikki Haley. They're grimly insisting that Trump is the agent of chaos, and it's like, oh, and Biden is the great bringer of global stability. It's beyond madness. We're at the point now where all you can do is sit back. You have your wine. I have my coffee, and you just kind of watch. Years ago in the 1950s, there was this sci-fi horror movie called The Monolith Monsters, and it was about these. They weren't alive. They were kind of like growing rocks. What they would do is they would grow to this height, and then they would collapse under their own weight, and each shard would then grow into another monolith. And so, they were going to basically take over the world by simply growing until they collapsed. And then, and that always stuck with me because that's sort of what's happening with leftism right now. It's like all these weird shards are now growing in all directions and, collapsing under their own weight. But unlike in the movie, they ended up putting them to sleep by flooding the area they initially infested with salt water, because salt water made them permanently dormant. But the only way to make leftists dormant is to remove them from power. And I all the signs show that this is definitely going to happen in a few months from now. But between now and the election, boy, anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Well, you and I always say that 6 months in American politics is an eternity, and anything can happen. But some things, some things I don't expect to see anymore, and then the next morning there they are.
Well,
I didn't expect. The Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, uh, half the Senate to come out. It's only March. It's only 5 months or so since October 7, and these fuckers are out there asking for regime change in Israel. Not in Iran, mind you. Not in Iran. We don't need any changes in Iraq either. Certainly not in Moscow. Now we need regime change in Israel. Are these people on drugs?
well, I mean, okay, just you said things you never expected to see. We're getting illegals in California now who have rabies, human rabies.
Yeah.
We're seeing diseases that were eradicated decades ago in the United States making a comeback.
Yes.
Smallpox,
Oh,
polio.
some of them are coming back not because of illegals, but because of people not getting vaccinated. Because now
Too.
we all hate vaccines.
Right, because vaccines have rat poison and mercury and plutonium in them.
Right.
But
And the guy who popularized that mercury bullshit is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That little shit. Because I don't know if you noticed, but he's a presidential candidate now.
yeah, but
Yeah, and we've deprived him of his social security, of his secret service detail, because we want him to get killed like his uncle and his daddy.
okay, whatever. I mean, Americans.
I mean, really, talk about flying fucking circus. Monty Python was an instructional, intellectual video, not a flying circus.
Well, okay.
Face it.
During during the Black Plague in Europe, there was an anonymous diarist who, I believe, he was in the UK or England at the time, and he chronicled not just the spread of the Black Death, but the breakdown of, I mean, the spreading mental illness of just people deciding to go all in on craziness. And, you know, Schumer and all these people who are Nadler, they're calling for the Israelis to vote out Netanyahu. I mean, this is outrageously stupid on their part because it's making the Israelis mad. It's making the American Jewish vote very angry. They're claiming, somebody said Schumer is he just has the courage to say what all American Jewish people are saying. That's not true.
Bullshit.
That's just not true at all.
No, that's total bullshit.
And the Israelis responded to all this by beginning their operation on Rafah. We've been hearing
Like they were going to stop
that
it.
the Egyptians were constantly. Hello, I'm seeing a black screen.
Uh-oh. I'm not. Let me see what happens.
Alrighty then.
Okay, hello?
Oh, you're not?
Hello?
I just got a
I'm
message.
not gone. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, I'm here too. We heard
Okay.
that the Egyptians had moved their army to the border ostensibly to threaten Israel. Well, finally, they're doing. They started building walls and building underground walls and blowing up tunnels. That's what they did.
Yeah.
This was all disinformation put out by the Egyptians.
And by the way, the Egyptians didn't put out the disinformation. They didn't give any information. But if you had an opportunity to talk to any of them, the Egyptians do not want Hamas rushing, escaping into Sinai. The Egyptians
Right.
have been waging their own war with Hamas in Sinai. They don't want, and by the way, when they say they don't want refugees because with the refugees, you get the Hamas holes.
Yeah. So not only are the Israelis basically telling Schumer to shove it up his butt and Nadler and Biden, they're going all out. And today Hezbollah told the Iranians to not interfere because Hezbollah would handle it, which means Hezbollah is not going to do anything because in 2007 actually, Hassan Nasrallah said, and I quote, if he had known, if I had known that the Israelis would wreak so much havoc in Lebanon, I wouldn't have carried out that operation. So
Right.
he knows. He knows if he launches a full scale, he knows that Hamas is dead, and he knows that if he launches a full scale war against Israel, that's going to lead to even more destruction in Lebanon. And basically by him telling the Iranians to butt out, my guess is it's more likely than not. Anything can happen. It's more likely than not that he's going to continue firing little piddling missiles in there.
Let me show you the little piddling thingy.
Yeah. No,
This is going on in the Lebanon border all the time.
Yeah.
they're not going to launch a full-scale war because they can't. And the Israelis are going to clean shit in southern Lebanon,
Yeah.
whether Venezuela wants it or not.
Well, that's the thing.
Whether Biden wants it or not, for that matter.
That's the thing. Biden is completely impotent. The whole world listened to Trump. Nobody listens to Biden because Biden is impotent. He's got dementia. He's incompetent on top of everything. He was incompetent even before he got dementia.
Always.
And, so the Biden policy is the three-ring circus. If you think about it, the State Department always insists that both sides have legitimate points, and that if everybody just gives a little, then we can all live together happily ever after. And Hamas doesn't have legitimate points. Hezbollah doesn't have legitimate points. And Vladimir Putin certainly doesn't have legitimate points. But the pressure was put on Zelensky. I figure that, okay, with the Europeans firmly behind Zelensky at this point, that leaves the U.S. with no choice but to support Zelensky. Yeah, and this whole notion that Macron said that the reason he changed his position because Putin was completely irrational. Like talking to Putin, yes. a huge waste of time.
It's something that the MAGA-tards and the Q-tards and conservative Inc. and even the Main Street press don't realize or don't want to talk about is that before he made these declarations, Macron spent several months trying to broker a peace deal with Putin.
Daily. He said he was
called. Really did, yes. He really did. He was accused of betraying Ukraine in Europe because he was pushing for a deal with Putin. And he tried every which way, but Putin is a deranged fucking maniac.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want any kind of decent agreement. He wants to take Ukraine. And after that, he wants Transnistria. And then he wants the Baltic states. And the imbecile, in his infinite idiocy, actually thinks he can defeat NATO.
Yeah, and okay, what people refuse to admit is that Putin is waging a war of extermination against the Ukrainians. Okay, everybody talks about the Gaza genocide that led a population of 780,000 to reach whatever the hell it is now, 5.5 million or something like that. So it's such a genocide. Putin is attempting a real genocide, and
yes,
Putin and his people have said this in plain language, that the Ukrainian culture doesn't exist. Ukrainians are Russians, and right. They will be brought home to Mother Russia whether they want to or not, and that means to exterminate the Ukrainians as Ukrainians. And
in the areas that he is occupying, he's ordered that those who do not take up Russian nationality be deported to concentration camps, to gulags in Siberia.
Yeah.
The ethnic cleansing is going on in Luhansk, in Donetsk. It's been going on for 10 years in some parts of Luhansk and Donetsk.
Yeah.
And in Crimea. Now it started in Zaporizhia and Kherson. And that is ethnic cleansing. That is genocide. But nobody's talking about it.
No, because as we've pointed out, nobody except the Israelis actually gives a damn about the Palestinians. Not one of the people protesting endlessly in Europe and in this country actually give a damn about the Palestinians. None of the celebrities, the actors and actresses during the Oscars who demanded an immediate and permanent ceasefire are they don't actually care about the Palestinians. This is just something to do, and it also allows them to openly express their hatred for Jewish people because I can tell you from firsthand experience that when I was working in Hollywood, at every party they told in this order black jokes, gay jokes, and Jewish jokes, but they didn't use the term black, gay, and Jewish.
No.
So
No. I'm so sorry we live in a politically correct era because I don't give a shit about the words they use. I use them on myself all the time. But yeah, that wasn't it. Um, what is it, this idiot John Cusack? He's more feminine than his sister.
yeah, no, he's lost his marbles. Um, the there's a certain type of actor, former leading men, who, as they fade, as their acting career fades, their activism intensifies, and you know, I don't know. It's just it's ridiculous because if the Israelis aren't bowing to world pressure from leaders, why are they going to bow to Hollywood? I mean, it's absurd. And the notion that Hamas must be saved is beyond
It's beyond asinine.
beyond deranged. There isn't a country in the world, and this applies to both Ukraine and Israel. There isn't a country in the world that wouldn't. I mean, proportionately, the October 7 attack on Israel took more lives than 9/11 by an order of magnitude almost. And in the case of Ukraine, the Russians have seized what, a third of the country, and here's the State Department telling the Ukrainians, "Oh, you just have to live with it," and it's telling the Israelis, "Well, you have no right to like exterminate."
Well, nobody's worse than that fucking asshole in the Vatican who came out with Ukraine has to have the courage of a white flag
Yeah.
and surrender to save lives. Why don't you go and sodomize yourself, you little shit?
Well, I mean, this is a flawed notion because when you surrender to totalitarians, you may save lives in the immediate future, but you're guaranteeing your
Millions are going to die.
Yeah. So you're not actually saving lives, you're costing lives. And
You're condemning, and not only costing lives, the survivors are going to wish they were dead too.
no, I mean,
I
history.
mean, what can Russia provide to Ukraine but infinite misery?
Well, that's the thing, because the Russians provide only infinite misery to their own citizens. But part of the three-ring circus is the absolute refusal to admit to the incredible damage that the Ukrainians and now their Russian allies are inflicting on Russia. The Russian, for lack of a better term, I mean, the Free Russian Legion is
Free Russian Army is what they call themselves, I think.
okay. So the Free Russian Army is on the verge of taking the entire city of Belgorod, and they apparently have a supply line. They have the ability to send prisoners back to Ukraine. So this isn't. I heard some idiot on the Times radio say this is an irritant to the Russians, and it's like, no, it's not. It's not an irritant at all.
You see, the problem is, by the way, this is not the first time they do this. They assaulted Volgorod and they took a couple of cities months ago. Then they withdrew. The Russians had to divert quite a number of their troops and capabilities to take care of the noise in Belgorod. Now they're back. They're back in force. They're back better armed in larger numbers. And Prigozhin already showed us what little defenses the Russians have. You see, these guys were able to go into Belgorod Oblast without any resistance.
Mm-hmm.
They are behind the Russian lines, moving about with almost total liberty.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling if they decided to march to Moscow Wagner style, they would probably make it to Moscow.
Yeah. And okay, I don't know if you've seen the videos coming out of Russians voting. They have armed men going into the booth with you to make sure that you're marking it for Putin. I mean, this is beyond insane. The fact that they're allowing it to be filmed is
Yeah. Well, by the way, don't give the Democrats any ideas.
no, I mean, okay, the RNC is just hired Lara Trump as the vice president, and she's organizing using all the legal tools available that the Democrats have been using, such as ballot harvesting and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And she has hired Scott Pressler, that grassroots guy, into he's sort of in charge of what's the term, formalizing all of this. So for the first time in possibly decades, or maybe ever, the RNC is making a real effort in getting as many votes as possible. Putting ballot.
Yeah, but you see, they better be ready to fill those mail-in ballots too, because the reason ballot harvesting works for the Democrats is because they have no qualms. They have no moral impediment to filling the ballots of every single patient in a coma in this country. Just signing up people to register, it's ineffective.
Well,
They have to vote, and if they don't, you have to vote for them.
No, they're not going to. They're not just signing people up and walking away. But what everyone needs to understand is that this isn't 2020. I mean, the country is in a hell of a lot of pain right now, and you are not going to find the same enthusiasm for Biden that you had in 2020, where it was like get Trump at all costs, and there's apathy now, especially since apparently Joe Biden is the most disagreeable person you could possibly run into. So he doesn't have the cachet of Obama. He doesn't have. I mean, there's no reason to fight for him. And what Lara Trump is talking about is banking as many early votes as possible. So, I mean, we can always point out, oh, they better do this, they better do that. But, there's not going to be any giant Democrat machine gearing up to steal the election this time around, because there's just simply no energy for it. We had an absolutely miserable voter turnout here in California, and Republicans won. I mean, not all offices, of course, but they told me at my own polling station that in
Orange County they did, didn't they?
They what?
In Orange County, I believe the Republicans won, which is kind of like a trip back in time.
Yeah. So there simply isn't. There's not going to be any big machine out there to protect Biden, because everybody knows the longer he stays in power, the more damage he's doing to absolutely everything. That the Biden reverse Midas touch is universal. It's domestic, it's global, it's, I mean, you name it. Obama himself said, don't underestimate Joe's ability to screw everything up, everything, and he's living up his reputation.
Let's not underestimate the son of a bitch, by the way, because yes, he doesn't have a knack for screwing everything, including us, up. Um, we have a couple of interesting things in the chat. One is our friend Faisal has come in. Let me see. There we are. Good evening, Faisal. Salam alaikum. Wa rahmatullah wa barakut. And I hope you're having an easy fast. And his question is, what's behind building the Gaza floating pier other than humanitarian aid purposes? Well, let me just start with one. Whatever the purpose is, humanitarian aid does not enter into it. The only purpose of building a floating pier in Gaza is to smuggle shit into Gaza. It's to bypass Israeli control of what makes it into Gaza. There is no need for aid. All of this circus of dropping aid with parachutes, I don't know, feeding the wild animals in the Negev for most of the time. It's a circus.
Well, kill
I'm
the,
sorry?
the pallets, a lot of the pallets malfunctioned and dropped straight down and hit and killed Palestinians on the ground.
Yes, it's killed by aid. Wonderful thing. It's a circus for internal consumption for these morons. There are literally hundreds of trucks going into Palestine, or going into Gaza, I should say. Uh, and they're stolen by Hamas. And people in Gaza are kind of rebelling against Hamas to try and get food. You
Um,
can increase the amount of food, but it's not going to go to them unless you escort it militarily and stop Hamas from stealing it.
yeah,
And
we're not sending any fighting troops. We're sending like the Army Corps of Engineers, so they're not
yeah,
going to support anything.
they're not going to get involved in this shit. And the moment this is open, I can almost guarantee you that Turkey and others are going to use it to resupply Hamas. I don't think Israel is going to let it happen.
No, they're not. And you just said that Palestinians are rebelling. There's an armed group forming. It's formed of Palestinians against Hamas, and they formed initially to escort the aid, and now they're fighting Hamas. And you can damn well bet that they're getting intelligence at the very minimum from the Israelis. So the Biden and his people are always, a day and a dollar short, or whatever, a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah.
They think they can lord things over the Israelis. It's not, that day is come and gone, and they think that the Israelis won't dare confiscate whatever aid that's going through. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past the Turks to send armed troops to try and give weapons to Hamas or whatever. But this is a done deal. I mean, they have the last organized. Hamas is so centralized that the Israeli strategy of taking out all the leaders is working. We were always told, oh, you take out one leader and then they'll just replace him with another.
Yeah.
That doesn't work in Hamas because, well, let me give you an example. when my father first went to Venezuela in 1955, he went as an engineer, and he discovered that the old timers he was expected to work with absolutely hated engineers. These are all men who came up through the ranks. And my father's first job was to map the pipe, all the platforms, the oil platforms, the drilling platforms in Lake Maracaibo had pipes to ship or to pump oil to the shore and to suck oil up from somewhere else. And all these pipes were connected in a central hub. And so when you were pumping and sucking up, you had to know which valves to turn on and turn off in sequence. Every oil platform boss kept all of that to himself in order to exercise his power. So when he retired or died, he took that information with him, and the person who had to replace him had to start all over again from scratch. So after a death or retirement, each oil platform, each drilling platform would be out of commission until the new boss had laboriously
figured it out.
So my father's first job was to map. There were 18,000 junctions, and he had to map the central hubs of every single oil platform. And he had to do that by prying up the wooden, the railroad ties that made up the deck, going down in there and then making schematic drawings of everything. And that was the way that they were able to bypass the territorialism of each oil platform boss. And Hamas is exactly like that. When a commander is killed, the guy who comes in has to learn everything from scratch by doing it, which is deranged.
He probably doesn't even know where the cash is hidden.
Exactly. So when a commander of a unit is killed, oftentimes the entire unit will just surrender because they know that nobody competent is going to take over. And if someone takes over, because these commanders have no deputies who know anything. It's all jealously guarded because Hamas is a whole series of power struggles. That's all it is. The leadership is nothing but thousands of power struggles. It's crazy. And in the Israeli military, I think we've even they've lost a major general. So when their commanders die, the subordinate already knows everything and he can seamlessly take over, he or she. But Hamas doesn't have that ability, so it's useless. They'll never win. The Turkey and the U.S. can supply them as much as they want. The end of Hamas is guaranteed at this point.
Despite Biden and Blinken and I don't know, however many of the reindeer that accompany the red-nosed one, um, the Israelis are going into Rafah. Let's put this to rest, because I'm not going to argue in social media. I'm not going to repeat myself again. The Israelis are going into Rafah. There's not going to be a single fucking unit of Hamas left when they're done. There might be, let's say, fugitives, like the ones that are uh, in luxury refuge in Qatar. The Israelis are going to hunt them down one by one, if need be, until there is none left. This is a point they have to make. This is not something they chose to do, it's something they need to do, and Hamas gave them no choice, and they know it. When the American imbeciles uh, Schumer, Nadler, Sullivan, uh, Biden, started calling for regime change in Israel and to stop the Rafah uh, action. Blinken even protested that he hadn't seen any plans for Rafah that looked doable to him. He hasn't seen any plan that looked doable or not doable or anything at all because showing Blinken what you intend to do in Rafah is suicidal.
Well, he'll
That
just.
asshole, right? They're going to pass the information on to the bad guys.
Did you
Who
hear?
trusts them?
Did you hear about the latest hostage deal that Blinken negotiated that Israel turned down?
Oh, the 50, uh, what was it? Was it 50 I'm sorry, 50 prisoners for every woman?
Uh, okay, that was of course turned down. So Hamas's final offer was, we'll release all the hostages in exchange for you releasing all Hamas prisoners
Mm.
and pulling all your troops out of Gaza. That's the brilliant plan that Blinken stood behind.
Yeah, what a fucking genius. And the thing is like now, and the other thing is, this is, to me, this is on some level actually quite funny. Before October 7, the Biden administration was busy spending American taxpayer dollars financing a, an uprising in Israel. Actually, financing a movement against the recently installed Netanyahu government over the Supreme Court legislation. Remember that?
Yep.
Hundreds of millions of dollars went to Israel to pay for the, AstroTurf and get these fuckers to literally threaten the government that had just won the elections. And the Biden administration was playing the opposition against Netanyahu. These idiots are trying to do that now. But there is a little bit of a fucking problem. After October 7th, the Israelis did what they usually do under such pressure, which is leave our domestic problems aside. And Netanyahu invited his opponents to join him in government, people like, say, Gantz. And they did, because now we're fighting for survival. We can go back to bickering when the survival is assured. The opposition that the Biden administration is trying to egg on to go after Netanyahu are actually members of the government now with Netanyahu, and they don't have time for this bullshit. Gantz's answer to Blinken was kind of like, why don't you just go fuck yourself and stop telling Israel how to do its business?
Yeah, I mean, members of the State Department have no business critiquing military strategies. I mean, it's like
Yeah, what the fuck does Blinken know of military strategy,
nothing.
incidentally?
Okay, I've been hearing something, and I want to make sure that we all understand reality just real quick. We're talking about chaos, and I hear people all the time say that this is the Cloward Piven strategy, and it isn't. The Cloward Piven strategy was very, very specific. Cloward Piven said that the Democrats should guarantee and enroll as many people as possible in every form of government largesse, every form of welfare, every form of help available. This would overload the system, and it would cause unrest that would the people would demand that more Democrats be put in power so that they could implement this gigantic freebie system. So the unrest they were talking about was political unrest that called for Democrats to take over everything. What people are confusing, maybe deliberately or not, the Cloward-Piven strategy with is the Algerian strategy,
Yes.
which is to deliberately help violent, murderous, destructive forces to commit crimes, mass murder, terrorism, so that then the people call on the government to protect them. But
Yes.
the Algerian strategy works only if your two choices are a repressive government or terrorism.
Yes.
Cloward-Piven is specifically designed to help Democrats by creating a call specifically for Democrats, whereas the Algerian strategy is designed to have people call for more oppression in the name of safety. So I'm not accusing Bukele of El Salvador of implementing the Algerian strategy, but El Salvador has reduced the crime rate to its lowest in modern history, if possibly ever, by basically suspending all constitutional rights.
But that's I don't like Bukele at all. Bukele is a little petty Central American dictator, uh, clothed in democratic language. But what he does, I mean, I don't think Americans would tolerate a Bukele for more than 5 seconds.
Well, this is the thing that Bukele has done away with a
They're
person.
creating a police state.
Well, he's done away with a person's ability to defend himself in court,
Yes.
or simply being arrested, put in gigantic prisons, and left there without any sentencing, without anything. And of course, that wouldn't work in the United States. It works in El Salvador because, they have a long history of living under various dictatorships. And
Number one, you know this as well as I do. El Salvador is not a country. It's a poorly administered farm.
yeah,
It has, there are single office buildings in Miami, Florida, with a larger GDP than El Salvador. All it is a primitive society with a strong army, lawlessness, which has helped, the growth of cartels and gangs during the past 40 years or so. And now they're responding by, massively arresting and killing people. And there are no civil rights. There are no citizen rights in El Salvador worth a farthing. If anybody thinks the elections in El Salvador are clean, think again. They're not. The system is manipulated by Bukele like the rest of them. And remember when Bukele decided to change the uh, El Salvador reserves to Bitcoin
yeah,
and lost half of them in a week? All
yeah.
he's doing is the same thing that every petty dictator does. He's using the central bank as his piggy bank, the army as his enforcing branch, and doing whatever the crap he wants. Now, as long as he goes after uh, gang members, everybody will be happy.
But there's no free
But no,
press. He's made it impossible for a press to criticize him. You're not
of
allowed to
course.
publish any
And,
article.
and when he runs out of cartel or of gang members, he's going to go after political opponents too. Actually, he's already doing it.
That's the accusation. I'd
Yeah,
like to point out something really ironic about all this. Everybody knows MS-13 is an El Salvadoran gang. What most people don't know is that it competed. Competition is a not the right term. It fought MS-18. Now, MS-13 existed purely in El Salvador on extortion. That you had to pay. Some people were paying, like bus drivers, were paying up to $6,000 a month in protection from both MS-13 and MS-18. When we opened when we started accepting massive illegal aliens and refugees and all of that, MS-13 came into this country, and then it became both a drug cartel and a human trafficking cartel. So we created MS-13 as it is today
today.
by our own utterly retarded
Yes.
suicidal immigration laws. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, not that long ago, the New York Times wrote this outrageously fawning piece on a kid who was an MS-13 member, but he was also an A student, and it was just like, what in God's
Yeah.
name? So
Complete with pictures of the asshole's tattoos.
exactly. So it's there's no doubt that El Salvadorans were suffering because of the gangs, but they went completely, the pendulum swung all the way over to the other side. And this is something that we always have to be on guard against, is that, I mean, and obviously the only person who doesn't threaten our civil liberties is Donald Trump, especially now that he's been through the system multiple times. He understands.
Hey, when Donald Trump criticized our policy that allow MS-13 gangsters to murder, rape, steal, deal drugs from Baltimore and Suffolk County, Long Island, to Los Angeles, he was accused of being a racist, anti-Hispanic, or some shit like that. Because apparently, if you like Spicks, like me and um, you have to love MS-13, those poor little kids
Well,
who despite appearances, have needs like all of us.
no, you have to be a criminal. Hispanics are criminals. That's what the left believes.
Yes,
Who are we to judge? I don't know. It's demented, and
it's part of their culture.
exactly. And I'll say a lot about my neighbors, but they're not criminals.
No,
They're Norteño lowlifes, but they're not criminals. They all work. They have a construction business.
yes,
They constantly
they're just a nuisance, but
nuisance
they're not criminals.
criminals. And this notion, I mean, we have the rising California crime rate, the outrageous California crime rate, hasn't hit my city, and that's because Mexicans, with the exception of cartels, they don't go for this kind of stuff. And
No,
we don't have smash and grabs here. We don't have massive shoplifting. I mean, okay, we have some shoplifting in that the drugstores have a lot of their medications behind the plastic lock boxes now.
Right.
But it's not dangerous to the point of, you don't dare go outside your. I mean, my neighbor had her insane grandson terrorizing her, culminating with him throwing a brick through her bedroom window. And boy, the cops helped her get a restraining order that is basically a lifetime restraining order, and it's renewed automatically, and he hasn't come back. So I thought for a while we were going to have to shoot this guy and to protect her. He was that insane. He was driving cars across her front lawn and just out of his mind. And so this is a little oasis. I mean, it's not a fun oasis. It's an oasis full of really loud, obnoxious people who don't give a damn about their own neighbors, but it's managed to hold off the worst of the crime and homelessness. There's only a handful of homeless people here, and I've never seen anyone give them a penny. But you can't start exchanging your rights for safety. That's a false trade. You can have your rights and be safe, but you have to vote the right way. You can't vote for Democrats. You can't vote for people who, in the end game, they're telling you to leave your front keys on the porch so that think about it. This is a perfect Monty Python sketch. This family's watching TV, and these guys come in, and they're like, "Hi, we're going to take that TV," and they're like, "Okay, I don't want any trouble," and they just clean out the house, and then they're like, they're all polite.
No, but what people in Toronto need to do is turn off their TVs and leave them outside on the driveway, so that thieves don't have to come into their homes to get them.
Yeah. How about just put all your valuables in the driveway?
Right. I mean, if you're going to do that with the car keys, do it with everything else. What the heck?
Yeah. No, I mean, they should just.
Fuck this. Go to a fucking shelter, leave your house with everything in there.
Exactly.
Take the key to the front door with the sign, "It's all fucking yours. I'm out of here." We just don't want confrontation.
Yeah. No, just live on a mattress. Don't have a cell phone. Communicate with smoke signals. I don't know.
I mean, are we really that? Have we grown that stupid as a society? Obviously, not every individual is, but as a society, have we really come up this stupid, or is it an individual case in Toronto?
Well, okay, the Canadian legal system, very much like the California legal system, is notorious for giving the worst, most remorseless murderers virtual slaps on the wrist. They don't believe in everything that the Canadian government does is done to be deliberately in opposition to the United States. They are obsessed with the U.S. and all the best Canadians I've ever met are Americans. They all moved here and got American citizenship. And I told you when I went to Canada, I'm never going back. Those are the most hostile people I've ever met in my life. They made it absolutely clear that they didn't want me sullying their wonderful country. And after driving
with your American toxic masculinity.
No, I went to Edmonton, and after driving their mind-warpingly stupid freeways, with road signs about this big, and one single exit to get off in Calgary, which we missed. So we waved bye bye Calgary, and we just kept driving.
Yes.
They have laws that say you can't have any American TV shows. So we were like watching these horrendous Canadian versions of American TV shows, and it just had that uncanny valley feel about it, where you're just like, and it's just every person we met had some snide one-liner, and the guy we interviewed, he was like, I'll bet you can't wait to get home. And we were like, yeah. And, my father was in love with Canada, and we were going to do some touring, and we drove straight out. And I have no desire to ever go back. And this is supposed to be the good part of Canada. So I can't even imagine what it'd be like in French speaking Canada. But, this is Canada and Western Europe are they're what American leftists think we should be here, and it's like it's not possible. Californians, they'll do it, but Californians will do whatever their leaders tell them to do.
The two left coasts will do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But and you think about that all the time, but why would that be? I already told you my peculiar notion about why New York, Massachusetts, Maryland, Illinois, California will forever be Democrat shitholes, and as time goes by, even more so. And it has to do to me with the way people are reared, with the ideas, with the memes planted on their heads, with their mother's milk. In these coastal areas is what the vast majority of new ideas come into the country in the form of immigrants and others, and where the American principles are most diluted. Now, the way it always worked in this country, by the time we get to the third generation removed from immigration, full Americans uh, have, let me put it, the descendants of those migrants become full Americans. They they used to go to our public school system. Um, they used to, when they graduated from high school, uh, go to a university a couple of thousand miles away, meet a girl from the Midwest or some other part of the country, and by the third generation, they didn't speak much at all of the original language. They had no love lost for the old country, and they had been fully Americanized. Now schools don't do their job anymore. They're too busy, I don't know, chasing math excellence or whatever the fuck it is this week, and trying to teach kids, about the great neglected civilizations of the world, like the great kingdom of Mali, because apparently it was more important for the history of this country and indeed the civilized world than Greece. They don't teach Greece. They replaced. It's not like they added the kingdom of Mali. It's like the three great civilizations, used to be Egypt, Greek, and Roman, is now Egypt, Roman, and Mali.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was some science fiction movie about the advanced kingdom of Wakanda, and they
Yet,
they had spaceships, but I have to say it, these people were literal spear chuckers, and it's like you're. I mean, This is what you're trying to present. They're wearing
Yes.
spacesuits and they're spear chuckers. I mean,
Apparently, Timbuktu is more important than Athens. Give me a freaking break.
I mean, I think the more the merrier. But you have to put everything in its proper historical context. And okay, they made a movie called The Woman King, and it was about the kingdom of Dahomey. And they made the Dahomeans fearless warriors against slavery. And this movie was such an inversion of reality that black Americans were like,
They were the ones selling their neighbors for crying out loud.
Dahomey existed purely as a slave trading nation, and not only that, they treated their slaves worse than King Leopold did in his free Congo state, and that's you know the Belgians murdered maybe as many as
I was going to say, and that's quite a record because the Belgians were one of the cruelest fuckers in Africa.
well they murdered maybe as many as 30 million Congolese. I mean, they hold the world record, and I mean, it's just, and then, okay, I hear this all the time now. People are talking about my truth. Well, it's my truth, and I respect your truth, and it's like, no, there's objective truth. There is,
Yes.
there is. The kingdom of Dahomey was a slave kingdom, and your truth doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I didn't even want to hear it. I don't even want to
No.
hear it.
Just for the fact that you call it your truth, I'm not interested.
No,
Subjective truth is not something that I give a shit about, and I'm not going to start now.
no, no. I mean, it's and this whole notion. There's a new video game out, and all the designers were told that under penalty of termination, they were not to make black zombies. It's like, okay, all right. So the mixed
Yeah,
message
yeah.
going,
Is this discrimination against Asian complexion?
I, the mixed message is that black people are so influential that they invented everything, and they're standing on the hill and the mountain and triumph. But they're also so fragile that if they play a video game with a black zombie, they're gonna have a mental collapse and have to be hospitalized. I mean, it's the same with women. It's the same with all other minorities except for Asians. Asians are deemed to be honorary whites, and therefore you can treat Asians as badly as you want because they're white people. Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
tell American Chinese how white they were considered at one point in American history. Come on,
oh yeah. The American Chinese were rather Chinese immigrants to America were the target of the first effort to discriminate in immigration.
yeah,
The uh, what was it that the Asian Exclusion Act,
yes,
uh, and that started the quota system that we are burdened with now, and put all of our immigration policies upside down. And the Democrats did this.
of course, and it's so.
Whenever there is something racist, it's them behind it.
Do you know what percentage of Americans are of East Asian ancestry? It's like 3%.
What 2%? I mean, something really. Same
Yeah,
thing with Jewish.
pardon me.
Same thing with Jewish heritage. So they're
Well,
more than maybe 2%.
exactly. So the Asian threat, the Jewish power cartel that runs the world. I mean, it's just, and these are all lies that are pushed by leftists more than anybody else. Um, I know I've learned that leftists, by the nature of their ideology, are anti everybody except for now white females. You still hear about the frigging non-existent patriarchy, and women are a marginalized group, and it's like they're running everything. They're running everything. I mean, we haven't talked about the three-ring circus, or the circus of Trump's legal woes, but that's all women. That's all women going
That,
after
that,
it.
that's all diversity hire women.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Because let's face it, the one commonality between Letitia James and this idiot in Georgia is how incredibly crass and stupid they are. They are grotesque in their classlessness. The level of education is that of a Russian peasant. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to eat. They don't know how to dress. They all adopt this I'm better than thou attitude that is probably taught in ungodly places like Howard University, and they believe themselves to be superior, but they are just tacky. How 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 can this country of ours give so much power to so many imbeciles?
Well, it's like you said, this is diversity hires. And okay, in the case of the Georgia case, there's a milk toast judge who wants to be loved by everybody, and so he he allowed the prosecution of Trump to continue for the time being, on the condition that the head prosecutor, or Fannie Willis and her entire office, be taken off the case. And
Yeah, one of the two has to leave. He did.
yeah, so the prosecutor left, but those two, they were like clowns. They were using taxpayer money to live big, to travel and to eat, and you know this woman, she perjured herself too many times to count, and she gets to stay on the case. The case is ridiculous. I mean, it's certainly, the trial is not going to happen now before the election, and
No.
it's everything is blowing up in the Democrats' faces. Everything, and it's because of incompetence. It's because of sheer. I have no doubt that Fannie Willis thinks of herself as, what the hell was his name? The Scopes monkey trial. The defending attorney. I forgot his name.
Oh, God, hold on just a second, because that was reported by Lincoln. The William Jennings Bryant was the prosecutor.
Right.
The defending attorney, he was actually. There was a great movie about this once.
Right.
Oh God, I can't remember now. See, this is the effect of the time here. My brain is mush at this hour.
Oh, sure. Well, Clarence Darrow.
Clarence Darrow, yes.
Yeah. So she thinks she's the prosecuting version of Clarence Darrow, and you know,
And, And she's the parody of William Jennings Bryan.
Yeah, I mean, she's an idiot. And
Complete.
it turns out that they've put a gag order on Trump, and she's out there, you know, poisoning the case left and right. She's going to churches and poisoning the case. And she's brought race into this. You know, they're persecuting me because I'm a black woman. And
No, because you're a fucking imbecile.
well, because you're committing crimes. You're committing crimes. And it's a done deal because they managed to turn Georgia. Georgia is Trump country. You have the black residents of Georgia basically saying, okay, that's it, we're voting for Trump. And this is an amazing thing. Trump's inroads into all these traditional Democrat stalwarts. This is a reflection not only of Trump's efforts to reach out, but of the sheer blubbering incompetence of the Democrats. Democrats, leftists in general, always push too hard and they push too much. They pile on and they make everybody turn against them, this is what they're doing with all their pet, what would you call them, crusades. And they hire true believers, and the true believers, they all flame out. I mean, think back all the big leftist names in social media and print media during the immediate post 9/11 period. All those people they faded away. But the vast majority of the conservatives who were opining, they're all still here. But Don Lemon, what the hell? Elon Musk gave him a job and then fired him after his first day on the job.
I mean, whatever possessed Elon Musk, I've known Don Lemon to be an arrogant moron for years.
Of course.
It only took me to watch him once in action years ago. The guy thinks he's a fucking genius. He is on the level of a shoe sole.
Well,
why offer him a job to begin with?
Well, Lemon has an uncontrollable urge to crap where he eats. And now that he's washed up, his first interview was with Musk, and everybody who knows anything about Musk knows that he does not take well to criticism. And if you're his employee and you're giving him lip, as my father would say, you're going to be out the door. And that's not to say you can debate Musk. That's perfectly fine. But if you ever try to get one up on Musk, then you're immediately put on his shit list. And people in Musk's position, they have big egos. You have to know how to handle people with big egos. If you handle them well, you can get them to talk, to debate, and you can challenge them, but you have to do it the right way. And Don Lemon is not smart enough to do it. He had this legendary interview with Morgan Freeman about race.
Oh, Morgan Freeman chewed him up. I remember that one. But the thing is, Morgan Freeman is, number one, a very intelligent person. Not every actor is. Actually, most actors are not. But Morgan Freeman, by some luck of the draw, has a very privileged brain. And he's articulate, and he can put those sentences that it makes you wonder if instead of an actor, he shouldn't have been a writer. and you put in front of him a moron with an oversized ego. And if anybody watching us tonight has never seen this interview, please do. Is the evisceration of an idiot by a man of intellectual capacities.
Well, Don Lemon had the stupidity to tell Morgan Freeman that Morgan Freeman was a victim of racism.
Yep.
Freeman said, "You and I are living proof that systemic racism does not exist in this country."
Yeah.
You know, he said, and considering my age and where I came from, the fact that I've been as privileged as I am, as I think he used the term blessed. He said,
Mm-hmm.
this is proof. And you know, and Lemon said, "How do we deal with racism?" And Freeman said, "Stop talking about it."
I'm talking about it. That was the most. But that's the thing, you know. This fucker is at the time an anchorman in CNN, making an obscene amount of money.
And respected by some people.
Uh, God, unfortunately, I don't know. I can't understand why, but they do.
Yeah.
And certainly his race doesn't play a part one way or the other. And he's talking constantly about systemic racism. If if there was systemic racism, you wouldn't be in this position, you idiot, which is what Morgan Freeman was telling him.
Well, this is the thing that you know, um, the Babylon Bee did a skit where it showed two two men sitting in lawn chairs talking about all the accusations made against white people, and then eventually one of them says, "I'm going to go get another beer. Do you want another beer?" And he said, "No, I'm good." And he says, "Well, beer is it has a lot to do with our white privilege." And the camera pulls
Ooh,
back, and they're sitting in this trash strewn yard in front of this
yeah,
broken down trailer, and one of them sort of surveys the disaster and says, "Yep, we got white privilege."
yep,
And it's it's all too stupid for words, and
yeah.
this terror that some white people have of being called racist. I mean, the term has lost all of its power.
It has no meaning to me.
No.
I'm surprised, though, that they didn't go after Morgan Freeman the way they did after Bill Cosby.
Well, there's something about him that is intimidating. Not that he could beat you up, but he's just too. I mean, you could just tell that. I mean, he did come from a an underprivileged background, and he's got a very gifted intellect, but he's also somebody that you don't want to mess with. And you know, these people will pick on weaklings, not weaklings, but people who they see they can score victories off of. And this is why if you ever get accused of something, you can never apologize, because once you open that door, your apology is never going to be good enough. And you see people over and over and over groveling, crying, I didn't know, I didn't know. Okay. People have people with huge.
It happened to Madonna this week. I was cracking up.
Oh,
Madonna looks like my grandmother now.
oh yeah.
I cannot imagine how she's still trying to be a 20-year-old girl is beyond me. The poor woman is sick.
Yeah.
But apparently she got into a little spat because some of her fans got up on a kind of a standing cheering ovation, and one person didn't, right there up in front. And she confronted this person. How come you're not standing up? And it turns out the guy was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Now, my first reaction is so fucking what? That doesn't invalidate her question. By the way, why are you still sitting down? Because I'm in a wheelchair, you moron. Oh, sorry about that. And that's the end of it. No, now she's apologizing. It was insensitive of her. How the fuck can it be insensitive if she couldn't possibly have known?
Well, this is the thing. Insensitivity, I mean, what does it matter? I have conversations every day with deeply insensitive people. I never correct people. I never say, I wish you wouldn't say that. I never confront people about what they've said. Um, because there isn't anything anyone can say. I mean, I assume if you're in a wheelchair, you've either been born with something or you've had some traumatic accident.
No.
And
Or you're too fucking lazy to walk.
well, okay, you're 400 pounds overweight, whatever. But having somebody not know you're in a wheelchair, that's probably, after what you've been through one way or the other, it's probably not going to be a big deal. I just saw a police video where they arrested one of the most absolutely unpleasant young women I've ever seen. She was drunk and just wanted to fight. In the new hotness is for women to like start trying to insult the cop's manhood. And he says, "Are you married?" She says, "Are you married?" He said, "No." And she goes, "Oh, probably your dick isn't big enough." And he said, "Well, my wife died of breast cancer recently." And this was a straight line. She immediately goes, "Oh, good. You can't believe how happy that makes me." I mean, what I would have said if I were the cop, if she asked me, "Are you married?" I would say, I don't remember. Um, or how the hell would I
What
know?
is it to you?
You know, just something. There isn't anything a drunk idiot can say that's going to hurt me or make me want to respond on the level. Or if she says, they always say, "I'll bet your dick is only 5 inches long." I'd say, "Yeah, but my wife's dick more than makes up for it because hers is 27 inches long." It just they wouldn't know what to say. I mean, you can't engage nutcases on their level. You can't just
No.
you can't.
No. I think we once had a similar discussion with other type of asshats, uh, but it was the same approach. Uh, Always have a different approach, a surprise approach.
Yeah,
Don't do what they expect you to do because then you're playing on their terms.
yeah.
Uh, uh, It's, by the way, speaking of police and all that jazz, in Portofino, this gorgeous place back here, uh, I parked, I head for this caleta, and as I do so, I go by the local municipal police station, where there is a gathering of all the cops, you know. Municipal police are the ones that deal with pickpockets and cars parked in unauthorized places and that sort of thing. They were all women, they were all pretty, and they were all in their 20s. And I stand up looking at that, and my wife says, "What are you doing?" She says, I'm standing here wondering what the fuck can I do to get arrested. And one of the cops overheard and started laughing.
Mm,
And then I realized I wasn't home because she wasn't offended. She was genuinely cracking up. She got the joke.
yeah. I
I
mean,
wonder sometimes if I do it in the US, if I'm not going to get arrested for being a chauvinist pig or something.
Well, she would make a TikTok about it, and she would like identify you, and then you would have hordes of insane people, coming down on you and threatening you and all of that. I mean, this is one of the main reasons that American men. Okay, there's it's sort of waning out now because more and more gyms are banning filming, but these women would go to gyms wearing like these outrageous clothes, and then some guy walking past would sort of glance, and then she would call him a pervert and say that he was threatening her, and she would post a freeze frame of his face. Then he would be identified, and you know it got so bad that the gym started banning filming. And I mean, filming yourself working out is the act of a real narcissist anyway.
Oh yes, isn't it?
You know, you work out and then you go home and you look at yourself in the mirror if that's your deal. I mean, I lift weights, but I don't even go and look in the mirror. I just, my goal is to try not to be a feeble old man like Joe Biden. I don't want to be able to, if I fall down, I want to be able to get up. And, I don't care how it makes me look. But, this whole thing where it's like fathers refuse to drive the teenage babysitter home because he's terrified that she's going to make some kind of accusation against him, or everybody filming every interaction now for their own safety, and it's all concerning leftist women. um, it's really
Does it happen to you when you see a video proving that somebody did something? I I just it's not enough for me.
well
I'm
considering.
not sure if I'm seeing the whole video. I don't know the circumstances. I don't think a video should be proof of anything.
Well, okay, if you go to a gym and you're wearing these new gym pants that all women wear, that they have they're tailored in such a way that it goes right up your butt, so it perfectly sculpts and separates your butt cheeks, and you're doing special butt exercises, and you set your camera up. I mean, you're going to have men looking at you, and
Of course.
looking at you is not. When you go to a public place like a gym, you do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy. If you don't want to be seen in the gym, wear a burqa, wear a Saudi Arabian naqib, and work out completely covered from head to toe.
And by the way, why should they even fucking care?
Well, because they're crazy, they're mentally ill, and they hate men.
By the way, when you look at women, do you only look at women because you like them, or do you look at women because they look fucking weird sometimes?
Well, yeah, I saw a woman in the supermarket who was very slender, and she had a butt implant. She had butt implants, so her rear end was literally 3 feet wide.
Protruding out, it's like a backhand table.
Well, let me tell you something really disgusting that I just learned. It's not some
Eh,
sort of thing that I.
I'm sorry, hold on just 1 second. Something very disgusting. Uh, People in YouTube, this is where we part ways with you guys because YouTube doesn't like what we're talking about now. So, fuck it. Come and join us here in Odyssey, and the link is right there in the video description. Good night, guys. And